Okay, let's talk about a word you've probably heard thrown around a lot in tech, DevOps. But what does it actually mean? And, why should you even care? Let's get into it. Yeah, if you've ever been near a software team, this probably looks familiar. You've got the developers saying, worked fine in dev, while everything is literally on fire behind them, adding, it's an ops problem now. It's one of those memes that's funny because, well, it's painfully true. So, why does this happen all the time? What's with all the friction between the people building the software and the people who have to make sure it actually runs? And really, the big question is, isn't there a better way to do all this? To answer that, we need to take a quick step back in time. So, our story really starts with the original way software was built, something called the waterfall model. You can think of it as kind of the granddaddy of all development processes. And this image shows you exactly how it worked. It was totally linear, step by step. You'd start with all the requirements, and only when that phase was 100% locked in could you move on to design. Then you'd code it, then you'd test it, and so on. Each step flows down to the next, just like a waterfall. And here's the key. There was no going back up. Now, it wasn't all bad. On the one hand, it was simple. The phases were really clear, and for small projects where you knew exactly what you needed, it was pretty easy to manage. But the downsides? Oh, they were huge. It was incredibly rigid, absolutely terrible for big, complicated projects, and honestly, the risk was through the roof. And here's the real kicker. With the waterfall method, you didn't have a single piece of working software until the very, very end. So imagine you're 6 months in and the client's needs change, or you find a major flaw in the original design. Going back to fix it was a nightmare, super difficult and incredibly expensive. The system was just too stiff for the real world. So clearly something had to change. And that change was a new idea called Agile. It was pretty revolutionary, designed to bring some much-needed speed and flexibility to the whole process. And you can see the shift in thinking right here. On the left, you've got that rigid, one-way street of waterfall. But on the right, you have Agile, this continuous repeating loop. We basically went from moving in a straight line to moving in a circle. So instead of one giant project, Agile breaks all the work down into these small cycles called sprints, which usually last just a couple of weeks. And at the end of every single sprint, you deliver a small, working piece of the product. That means you're constantly getting feedback, and you can adapt to changes on the fly. So Agile made development way, way faster. Problem solved, right? Well, it actually created a brand new problem, which this image calls the wall of confusion. Suddenly, the development team is pushing out new code at lightning speed, saying, hey, it works on my machine. But the operations team, the ones who have to actually deploy and maintain it, are pulling their hair out saying, yeah, but it doesn't work in production. And this gets to the heart of the tension. The two teams had completely opposite goals. The dev team's job was to create rapid change, to innovate and push new features. The ops team's job was to maintain stability and make sure nothing ever breaks. So when you speed one team up, you just create this huge bottleneck and a ton of friction with the other. And this is the exact problem that DevOps was created to solve. It's not just another process. It's really a whole new philosophy, designed to finally tear down that wall of confusion. So what is it really? Well, at its core, DevOps is all about bringing the development team and the operations team together. The whole goal is to combine their skills to get from an idea to a working product in the customer's hands as fast as possible, but without sacrificing quality or stability. I think this visual just says it all, right? Instead of two different teams pushing in opposite directions, DevOps is about getting their gears to actually mesh and work together. It's about creating one single, unified process where everyone is turning the same wheel in the same direction. And this whole new way of working really stands on three main pillars. First, there's automation, automating everything you possibly can. Second, you need the right tools, a shared set of tools that everyone uses. And third, and this is by far the most important one, is culture. You need a cultural shift toward collaboration, shared ownership, and taking responsibility together. So how does this all work in the real world? The best way to understand it is to look at the DevOps lifecycle, which is almost always shown as this infinity loop. And there it is. The reason it's an infinity loop is to show that building and running software isn't a project with a start and a finish. It's a continuous, never-ending cycle of planning, building, learning, and improving. And that loop is made up of these key stages. On one side, you've got the development part: plan, code, build, and test.
Once the code is tested and ready, it crosses over to the operations side for deploy, operate, and monitor. But here's the magic. All the data you get from monitoring feeds right back into the planning stage. It creates this constant feedback loop that just keeps making the product better.
Now, really quick, let's just bust a few myths. First off, DevOps isn't just for cool startups. Huge old-school companies are using it. It's also not the same thing as Agile. It's more like an extension of Agile. And maybe most importantly, you can't just buy DevOps. It's not a tool you can install. It's a fundamental change in how your teams work and think together.
Okay, so that's the theory. But what does all this actually look like in practice? What are the real-world results when a company embraces DevOps?
This is where it gets pretty mind-blowing. Just look at this contrast. A company like Amazon, which basically pioneered DevOps, pushes new code to its users 23,000 times per day. Now compare that to a typical older enterprise that might deploy a big update once every 9 months. The difference in speed is it's astronomical. And this incredible speed isn't just for the tech giants. A big survey in 2021 found that 60% of developers said they were releasing code twice as fast as they used to, all because they started using DevOps practices. That's a huge productivity jump across the entire industry. And at the end of the day, all these technical improvements lead to some major wins for the business. You get your product out the door faster, you can innovate and stay ahead of your competition, your systems run more efficiently and become way more reliable. And all of that leads to the thing that matters most: happier customers.
Which brings us right back to our main idea. We've seen that DevOps isn't just a new buzzword or a fancy tool. It's a real shift in culture. It's all about collaboration and working towards the same goal. It's about breaking down those invisible walls we build inside our own companies. So the only question left is, isn't it time to break down yours?